Hi everyone, and welcome to my February reading wrap-up and my March to be read. So in this video, we're going to be discussing every single book that I read in February, and we will be choosing our March reads. I'll be picking a couple from my TBR jar. I don't have a cute jar, so I put them in a mug, but I have like 20 prompts in here that we can choose some books from. So yeah, let's get into it. First off though, I do need me an energy drink. I am low on the energy today. I have a mini Imani. I've decided that I need to start drinking the minis because the full size, I do not need a full size energy drink on my days off. Whoa, she exploded a little bit. Ugh, this flavor is so good. Orange Kiss, Imani, perfect for today. First, let's talk stats about February. I ended up reading 10 books in February, which is really, really good for me because in January I only read 5, and I think in December I only read like 2 or 3 books. So we are kicking it up. We are locked in for the year, and we are reading, and I love that for me because it's my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. So let's talk about what I actually read. So I only read romance and fantasy romance this month, which is usually my typical reads because that's just the genres that I tend to go to. So I have a very large range of books that I read, but I think I read half fantasy romance and half regular romance. So I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I read 5 fantasy romances, so that leaves 5 contemporary romances. So I really, really like this month. I had, I think, 1 5-star read, and almost everything else was 4 stars and above. So we had a really great month. But we did not start the month off amazingly because we finished Onyx Storm at the end of January, and as you know, I was in a severe reading slump and depression after finishing that book because first of all, it was incredible, and 2, if you read it, you know what happens in the end, and it puts you in the deepest slump that you probably have ever been in. So we did not start the month off strong. We started off reading A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden, and I rated this book, I think, 2 stars. Let me look. Yeah, 2 stars. And I think I ended up going to Fable and rating it 1.75 stars, which I always feel like a terrible person when I don't like a book because I feel bad for the author because the author, I know, put in so much work to write this book. But this book literally felt like it was just a booktok fantasy romance like child because it had everything that you would want in a fantasy romance, but it just didn't hit for me. And I don't know if it's because I literally just finished Onyx Storm and then I go into this book called A Dawn of Onyx, and I don't know why I decided to choose this book because usually I go into like a contemporary book after I finish a fantasy book that put me in a reading slump. But I chose this because all the booktok girlies were like, you could do this one after you read Onyx Storm to help you out of your reading slump, and it did not do that for me. But I think the reason why I rated it so lowly is because I just didn't like the writing. I didn't like the main character, and I felt like it could have had so much potential, and it just didn't get there ever. It is a trilogy, it is a completed trilogy, so I don't know if eventually it'll get there, but it did not hit for me. But if you are interested, it is about a healer. She is living, I believe, in the Amber Kingdom, and her brother went to go fight the war against the Onyx Kingdom, and he comes back and they're looking for him, and in exchange they take her instead to the Onyx Kingdom and basically kind of hold her as prisoner and use her as a healer, which is where she meets the Onyx Prince, or the King of Onyx, I believe, and they meet and they kind of fall in love. They're enemies to lovers. And it has like a great premise, and it started off really, really good. Like I was really intrigued in the beginning, and I was like, oh, this really could get me out of my reading slump. And I wasn't in a crazy slump for the month. Like I read more books than I usually do, but it just didn't hit for me, and I unfortunately do not recommend it. But I have seen a lot of other people recommend it, so to each their own. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's how I feel about this book. So after I read that, I was like, it's time to go back into contemporary romance and choose something quick and easy to read. And so I don't even know if you would necessarily count this as part of your reading goal, but I count it as part of my reading goal because I did read this book. But it is The Fall Risk by Ali Jimenez. It is a short story. It's only 82 pages, Some people might not count that for their reading wrap up, but I definitely will because I did read it. I mean, it was almost 100 pages. Like, it's a short book. It counts on Goodreads, so we're gonna count it. I gave this book, because it was a short story, I only gave it, I think, 3.5 stars. Yeah, 3.5 stars. And because it was just a short book, like, I really felt like I couldn't necessarily rate it any higher. Basically, The Fall Risk is a short story and is about a girl and a guy, and they both live in the same apartment complex, and they live on the second floor. One day they get up and out of their apartments, and they realize the stairs to go downstairs is missing because they're working on renovating stuff. And so they're basically stuck up there, but our female main character has a stalker, and so she's feeling really, like, isolated and freaking out because she has had a stalker previously and she has to move around a lot to get away from this man. So the guy across the apartment hallway, who is also stuck up there, basically kind of helps her with her mental health, and they kind of come up with these, like, cute little dates around Valentine's Day and get to know each other. And it was really, really cute. I think it would have been, like, a fun, long story as well, but just a short story, 3.5 stars. I definitely recommend it if you need something to increase your reading count and get closer to your reading goal, if that is something that you're interested in. The next book that I read was really, really amazing, and it was another contemporary romance. I absolutely loved it. It was Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonam-Young. This book meant, like, everything to me. It was so good. I rated it 4.75 stars when I first read it. I think I'm gonna go back and rate it 5 stars because I'm still thinking about this book, and I just feel like it is, like, an important book to me because it is about a married couple. I just got married, but they've been married for a long time in this book. They got married young at 19 because our female main character, her mom, ended up passing away. They knew she was going to pass away, so they wanted to get married so that she could be at her wedding. And they've been in, like, a happy, committed relationship for, I think they got married at, like, 19, and then I think we're now at where they're, like, 30, 31-ish. So they've been married for a long time. They don't have any kids. And our female main character is still, like, lost in the loss of her mother and just, like, never really found herself in her marriage, and she's just been struggling with that. And so it's also playing a part in having the husband struggle with it as well. And so they decide to go on this couples retreat where they can't have their phones, they're camping out, they're hiking, and they end up kind of, like, re-falling in love with each other and finding themselves again and going through, like, this therapy and just falling in love again. And I absolutely loved it. I think that it was so therapeutic and healing, and I know that I have not been married for very long, but just thinking about how, like, there's so many ebbs and flows in a relationship even when you're married, and it's not always going to be happy forever. And I just loved how that was the theme of this book, and that you can always work through something together and figure it out together. So I absolutely love this book. It made me a Hannah Bonam-Young fan, and so I definitely want to read more of her books. I think even if you aren't married, I think you would still really, really enjoy this story, just because, even if you're in a long-term relationship or not, because it will definitely be relatable in some sort of way. Next, we kind of took a little bit of a turn, which not really like a turn. It was still contemporary romance, but it was way spicier than any of the other books that I've read this month. And it was Deep End by Miss Ali Hazelwood. I rated this book 4 stars. I feel like this book has been getting a lot of hate on, like, booktok and everything. I personally enjoyed it. There were parts of it that I did not like, and there are parts that I agree that people didn't really like. But basically, this is about a girl, and she is a swimmer, or she's a diver, and then the male main character is a swimmer, so they're kind of, like, on the same team. They're really, really amazing at their sport. They're at the Olympic level. They go to school. They are at Stanford. They're both trying to become doctors someday. They're trying to get into med school. And they are also into the same things sexually. It's a BDSM book, like, and it's not anything crazy. Like, it's not super smutty. I don't know. Like, some people say it's way too much smut, and some people say it's not enough. I think for what the theme of what this book was supposed to be, I don't think it was necessarily enough. Like, I think that if you were someone who really, really likes spicy, smutty books, this isn't going to be enough for you. And I think if you're someone who does not like spice in any book, then you are going to absolutely hate this book, because basically every other chapter is smut, but it's not anything crazy in the BDSM world. Just so you know. And, like, I really don't read books like that are this spicy usually, so this was on the spicier scale for me, but I did really like it and I did enjoy the story. There is another woman in the story and she is the ex, but she's also the girl's best friend. And I did not love that part. I think that this book would have been a 5-star read for me if it wasn't for the other girl. And you find out right away that the other girl is like kind of okay with it. Like she's okay with them being like friends with benefits, but she's not okay with them like being together, which she never really expresses that, but she just is kind of a mess. And it's constantly brought up in the book about how she is just like dealing with so much, and the female main character is like, I'm worried about her. And I just wanted to forget about her, and I wanted to focus on our main couple. So that's why I docked a star, because I did really like it. And I love Ali Hazelwood a lot. So I think that it does get the amount of hate that it needs, but also gets the amount of love that it needs. It's a mixed book, but I did really like it. I do understand some of the hate and some of the love. So take with what you will, and if you want to try it, I do recommend it. So after finishing Deep End and being in this contemporary romance bubble for a little bit, I decided that I was finally ready to have a little fantasy romance time. And so I read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. I really don't know how to say her last name, but I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. It is a story between a witch and a witch hunter. I kind of gave my full thoughts and reviews on this in my last video, but basically I did absolutely love it. This is a story between a witch and a witch hunter, and our female main character is the witch. Our male main character is the witch hunter, and the female main character, she is in hiding and is in cahoots with the witch hunters, and so she learns where they're hiding the witches, where they're finding the witches, and she goes and finds them first and rescues them and helps them so that way they don't get killed. But she is also kind of falling in love with the witch hunter, and the witch hunter is falling in love with her, even though he suspects her as a witch. So they're kind of like fake dating almost, but falling for each other at the same time. And I really, really liked it. I rated it 4 stars. I highly, highly recommend this book. I then had like a little bit of a week after I finished this before the second book came out, so I decided to read another contemporary romance book that I have been wanting to read for such a long time, and I finally got around to it, and it is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This book was incredible. I loved it so much. It is about friends who were frenemies kind of growing up, and they kind of had a thing growing up with each other, and then a lot of life things happened. They break up even though they weren't ever officially together. They go their separate ways for 10 years, and then our female main character ends up ending her engagement and moves back to the small lakefront town where she is back again with her ex-frenemy. He is basically like he buys a bunch of buildings in the lakefront town and has become a billionaire from owning these properties, and she is an interior designer. And so they decide to work on a project together. So they are forced to work together and spend more time together. It is a thick book, but it also deals with a lot of mental illness, and the characters just start to help each other out with all of their mental illness. They both have had losses in their life, they have had abuse in their life, and they help each other and learn from each other, and I absolutely adored it. I flew through it, so then I ended up and went to the second book, which is Love Unwritten, also by Lauren Asher. This one is about the cousin of the male main character, but the cousin ended up being adopted by his parents, so they were kind of like brothers. And then it is also his nanny, because he has a son who is 9. This one also deals with mental illness, which it just brought so much to the story and made me love it so much that I ended up rating it 5 stars, because I love single dad nanny romances. Like, it is my favorite romance trope. I don't know why, it just gets me every single time. Basically, like, the male main character in this book, he's a dad, and he's been kind of depressed because his son is losing his eyesight, and he just doesn't know what to do about it. He feels like he kind of has failed as a parent. He wants to be able to help him better. And then he has this nanny, and she is this bright, beautiful light in their life. She's so much fun, so really into music, so she teaches the son like piano and guitar, and they write songs together. She just brought so much joy into their life, while he's kind of just this grumpy man who's depressed and trying to deal with all his mental illness, trying to deal with his ex-wife, who is the mother. She is just pretty absent in their lives, and he's dealing with that and feeling like a failure from that. And they fall in love, and I just absolutely loved it. It was definitely a slow burn. Both these books are kind of a slow burn, but I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars just because of the way they helped each other and formed love with each other through dealing with their mental illness. And I really, really liked that. And the little boy in the book is just, he's so cute and perfect. And yeah, again, I just love a single dad romance, and I highly recommend this series. If you've never read a Lauren Asher book, I had never read one before, and I feel like they're marketed as these super spicy, crazy books, and it was so much more than that, and I loved it. Once I finished Love Unwritten, the second book in the Heartless Hunter duology came out, which was Rebel Witch. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This one was so good. It was just a continuation of our Witch and Witch Hunter story, and I feel like it just jumped it up a notch. The connection between the two main characters was just amazing, and I feel like the romance was way heavier in this book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I felt like in the first book they weren't as into each other, but the second book, like, I felt the tension, I felt everything, and we just definitely knocked it up a whole notch, and I really, really liked it. So 4.5 stars for Rebel Witch. After we finished Rebel Witch, I decided to keep it up with the fantasy romance trend and went in with Heavenly Bodies by Imani Erriu, I believe is how you say it. I'm not really for sure. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. This book follows our female main character, and she is the princess of a kingdom in this big world called Celestia. Basically, the Celestia is ruled over by these gods called stars, and so a star came and tried to kill her family and tried to kill her, and she is now on the run, and he did succeed in killing her family, so she is now technically the queen of her kingdom, but she's on the run because he's still looking for her, still hunting her. And while she's on the run, she gets captured by a king of another kingdom in Celestia, and he forces her to work with his son, who is the prince, and they have to figure out a way to kill the star because the king is worried that the star is going to come and kill him as well. They're trying to figure out a way to kill the star, but they are also enemies. So it's enemies to lovers, but they end up being star-crossed lovers. It's Greek mythology, shadow magic. It's got everything you want in a fantasy romance, and it is heavy, heavy, heavy on the romance. If you are an ACOTAR lover, I really believe that you will absolutely love this story because very heavy on the romance, and they're both just like so romantic and so in love, and I absolutely loved it. Honestly, like, I flew through it. I think that this could eventually become a 5-star series for me once I get more of the books and learn more of the story. I felt like I was reading like a mythology book and reading the origin story of some crazy love story in Greek mythology, so I highly recommend. I really, really liked it, and you should definitely check this out if you haven't yet. It is only a book that is out right now, so it does end on a cliffhanger, just warning you, but I did really like it. I then went in with another fantasy romance book, and it was The Rose Bargain by Sasha Peyton Smith. This book I really liked as well. I think I gave it 4.25 stars, so a little bit higher than a 4-star read, and I really, really liked it. This is a blend of like Bridgerton, The Selection, The Bachelor, all with fae magic in it. So basically it is like Bridgerton. Our female main character is ready to find a husband and help her family, and the Queen of England is fae. And so she grants every girl who is looking for a husband a bargain to help her seem more desirable. And so she'll like fix your teeth for something in return, or she'll make your hair long and beautiful again for something in return. And she basically kind of just uses all these girls as her pawns to make these fae bargains. And her son is now on the market, basically. He is looking for a wife. And so our female main character tries to go after the Prince of England so that a way she can bring fortune to her family and fix her older sister's bargain that she made. She is still unaware of what her bargain was and has brought a lot of like shunning on her family, and she is seen to like never find a husband, even though she is now after the Fae Queen's son. So this was pretty high stakes. There's a love triangle involved, and I did really like it. 4.25 stars. It did end on a cliffhanger. The last like 30% of the book was just insane, and I had no idea where we're just going to go. I still don't know where we're going to go with the story, but the book just came out, so we probably have to wait another year for the second book to come out, which I want it now. I want more of this world. I want more of these couples. And there's lots of like female friendship in this book as well. It's kind of like on The Bachelor where they become like best friends with all of each other, which I really, really like to see. And they're all kind of working together, which I really liked. That was the last fantasy romance book that I read of the month. Oh wait, I think that was the last book I read this month. Yes, because I just finished another book, but I finished it in March, so it doesn't count. So this is the last book that I read. So now we can talk about our March TBR. The first book that I have on my March TBR that I'm not going to pick from the TBR jar is Wild Side by Elsie Silver. I'm currently doing a little reading vlog. I just finished Wild Eye, so that will be in my March reading wrap up. But I am so excited for this book. I love Elsie Silver so much. I think it's going to be a marriage of convenience story, which is so much fun. I love marriage of convenience, and I haven't read one in such a long time. And it comes out on March 4th. If you have not read this book yet or this series, it is the Rose Hill series. It's the third book. They're all interconnected standalones, so you can read wherever you want, but I highly recommend starting with the first one because they all kind of intertwine with each other, and all old couples will kind of show up in the next book. And now it is time to pull some prompts from my TBR mug because I do not have a cute little jar to show you guys. So I ended up putting all my prompts in this mug. I put like 20 prompts in here. I know a lot of people like will pull books from their shelf to go with these prompts. I have a bunch of prompts in here and not enough books on my shelf to go with every single prompt. So I'll probably choose some books from like Kindle Unlimited if I choose a prompt that I don't have a book on my shelf. I think I'm only going to choose like 2 or 3 prompts because I, at the end of the month, want to do a reading vlog of me reading dark romance for the first time because I've never read a dark romance book. So we need to save some room for that so I can read some dark romances at the end of the month. So I think I'm going to choose 3 because I am a mood reader and I may not read these books. So hopefully I can stick to like 2 or 3 of these prompts and they will be in my March reading wrap up. So let's choose our first one. Can't look. Okay, first prompt is a book with pink on the cover. Okay, I have a few options. So our options for pink on the cover, I chose 3 options. I have the Happily Never After playlist by Abby Jimenez, Bridesmaid for Hire by Megan Quinn, and Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. This is a hard decision because all of these books are so beautiful and we have some different options here. I think I'm kind of feeling like adding a fantasy because I know I'm starting the month off with some contemporary romances. I know that we're ending the month with dark romances, so maybe we should throw in a fantasy, and I've been meaning to read this book, and this cover is just so freaking beautiful, so this seems like a good option. So March TBR, book number 1 is Throne of the Fallen. Let's choose another prompt. Our next prompt is a book with magical realism. Okay, I think I have 2 different books that I can choose from. One is on my Kindle that I bought a long time ago that I needed to read for a long time, and that is The Unmaking of June Farrow. I soft DNF'd this book a few months ago because I tried to read it on my honeymoon and it just was not a honeymoon read, but I think that it would be a good book to read in March, so we have that one. And then I also have a novel love story by Ashley Poston, and I read The 7-Year Slip by her. I really, really enjoyed it, but I have seen some mixed reviews about this book after I bought it, so I haven't really picked it up yet. I don't know. It's kind of a hard decision, though, but I think because I have had June Farrow on my Kindle for a really long time, I think it is time to finally add it. So we are going to add this one to the March TBR. Okay, let's choose one more book from the TBR jar, so that way we have 3 kind of fun little TBR prompts for our March TBR. This prompt is a book that's been on my TBR for over a year. That's a lot. That's a lot of books. Let's choose a few options. So I chose 2 options for the prompt that is a book that's been on my TBR for over a year, and I kind of already know which one I want to choose, but I chose Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis and The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I'm going to choose The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna because I have been wanting to read this book for so long. It is very, very thick, but I read The Woman by Kristen Hanna back in November or December, I believe, and I loved it, and I fell in love with her writing, and this has been on my TBR for so long, and I think it's time to finally add it to a TBR. I am nervous that it is so thick, and I chose a few other really thick books. Like, we have Throne of the Fallen, which is really thick. But I think that this will add some variety to my reading and make it really fun, even though I've heard this is, like, gonna end my life, basically, and make me sob my eyes out. That's fine. I love a book that'll make me sob my eyes out. Okay, so just to recap all the March TBR books, we have Wild Side by Elsie Silver, The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, I believe her name is, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. And then at the end of the month, we are going to be reading dark romance books. I haven't fully decided what books I'm going to be reading on the dark romance reading vlog. I know I want to read The Predator by Runyx, I believe is the name of the author. I know that it's like a pen name, so there's that book that I want to read. It's a dark mafia romance, I believe. And then another book that I want to read on my little dark romance journey is Blackbird, or maybe Lights Out. One of those two. I know that I want to read like a funny dark romance because I think that'll be the best way to dive my feet into the dark romance world, because I am a little scared, but it's definitely a video I want to record, and I think that'll be a really fun reading vlog. So yeah, that is my February reading wrap up. That's my March TBR. I am so excited to read this month. I think it's going to be an amazing reading month. And yeah, I had so much fun picking out prompts for my TBR jar. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye!